Frieren, I do have one request.
What is it?
All I ask is that you plant flowers around my grave. I have a spell that creates a field of flowers. To tell you the truth, it's actually my favorite one. My parents taught it to me when I was a girl. It's what made me fall in love with magic.
And I'd like you to teach it to me.
Listen to me, Frieren.
Okay, welcome to Once Upon a Stitch Nook and my desk where the creativity happens. Things are not happening as planned. I had this big idea. I wanted a Frieren merch-like cardigan where Frieren was going to be on the back. And I finally worked this grid to work nicely. I'm pretty happy with it. I slated what colors I would use. And then I ordered the colors, and the original when I was so first concept was going to be Frieren on the back against the kind of cream backdrop, because let me pull this off of me. I have been loving this cardigan of mine in this cream, and so kind of just has some details of color, but all of it is this beautiful cream. I can't show that very well on screen, but anyway, I've been loving that, and I thought, oh, Frieren look great on the back of this. So that was my initial concept. And then as I was building up the grid, I realized, oh, I kind of have white on her. Technically, like, she has in the anime at least, they kind of make her hair a little more silver than white, so her white outfit stands out more. But for the sake of ease of colors, I was going to make them both white. Possibly, if anything, I was going to make the clothing a kind of cream to make her hair pop more. But either way, on top of that, and this tan color that I'm using kind of in her shadow areas, ears, and on the strip here, cream felt like it was going to really wash her out. She wouldn't pop very well, and this is going to be a lot of work, so I really wanted, okay, make a statement piece. I still need to edit this, but her eyes have kind of this blue in them, and I thought that'd be nice to pull, particularly the darkest point, which is kind of like a teal, and I look great in teal, so I was thinking that she would really pop out against a teal background. But then looking at references, I will pop them up here. That was looking kind of the other colors used throughout the anime and the posters and things. I found this yarn that when I saw it worked up fit really well with that theme, and it is this one here. Let's see, it is Cotton Kings, A World of Majestic Yarn, Sultan Deluxe from Hobie. And does it have a color on it? I think it just has the number on it. You'll kind of have to find that, but I'll put in a picture of what it looks like worked up, and particularly then I was like, oh, that's so pretty. So like her against the backdrop of those colors like in the poster. But then I realized it has white in the center, and what I really want the teal to be closest to my face, so it's going to be at the top. I was like, oh, that's going to kind of wash out here. Is that going to look weird? And I was overthinking it, and decided against that, to incorporate that for the backdrop color. And either we're going to go back to kind of a teal to pop her out, or a less colorful ombre that doesn't have white and sticks more towards the kind of teals and blues, and there's just a less of a color fade, but some color fade. I'm in such a color fade ombre era right now, so I'm really tied to that. So I have this gorgeous yarn, and I need to use it, and I really wanted it to be for Frieren. So what I worked out was I was going to go simpler, so that this is kind of its own theming, and it's going to be a little more subtle with just the logo, the title on the back. It took me forever because in order to get it nice and clear like this is like pretty nice. I had to even more a nicer version, but that had 30 extra stitches. Um, I had to squeeze in the spacing of the letters to where they were before. And the other option was this one, which is cute. It's really cute, and it still needs to be edited. It's not done. But I was really set on the capital because I like the elegance of it and it's what I'm most familiar with due to the anime. And so we are trying to do that now. Okay, life happened. Life rudely interrupted us. And so since then, I have done a little bit of work. I mean, just look at this. It's so pretty. Yeah. So I kind of got started a bit here. And let's see. I've redone this. I did have more progress done before, and I lost some stitches somewhere. Ugh, messy. Okay. So this is all we got. This is going to be the back panel. And let's see. As you can see, I'm starting at the top of the eye, since that's the highest point. And what I'm doing in here, because I hate just using straightforward single crochets or half double crochets or double crochets, I need more interesting texture. So we are doing the moss stitch, which, if it'll focus, there we go. No, there we go. Which is single crochet, chain one, single crochet, chain one, and when you work on the next round, you single crochet into the chains and chain over the single crochets. And admittedly, it looks better upward because it makes the little V's, and this is going to be upside down. It's going to look like that, but still it's textured, and I'm trying to figure out because I do not want to use just this stitch throughout the piece. I will see, but I would like to incorporate some different pretty stitches. I'm obsessed with right now the flower or star or iris stitch, whatever people call it. So I would like to incorporate something interesting into this. So I was debating on the back of the cardigan was going to have to be a solid piece in order for me to do the color work. So I'm thinking I'll do semi-solid. It is just single crochets when it's the color changing. And I'm nervous because, again, this is upside down instead of like this. At least, when it's going to be viewed. And I'm going to probably have to go back in later to tidy up some edges and such. But we will see how it turns out. This is a little experimental. I've got my little balls ready for when we get to the other letters. And yeah, just to show you, this is where we are. This is essentially the start. And I'll let you know how the graph goes.
Okay, so from here on out, we are going to be in voiceover mode. Due to that, just became easier because I was doing so much problem solving and I wanted to be in the moment and also enjoy the work. So this just became the best option. We also hit the coldest 2 weeks of the year, so that's why you see me working in my bed for a good chunk of this cardigan. But yeah, so something obviously to acknowledge is I am now knitting and not crocheting. Several reasons for that. Like I said, I went through a lot of problem solving, and the moss stitch, I did work it out to make solid stitches instead of chains where needed for the color work, but it was still looking fungally, and the texture wasn't really becoming worth it for that fungaliness. So I went back to solid single crochets like you typically would do for color work, and I could not stand the look of the single crochets, and it also still looked very homemadey, not that elegant look that I was really going for. I've said before I can be very snobby when it comes to crochet stitches when it's the simple ones and not like a more elegant elevated combination. Just the texture doesn't vibe with me unless I'm going for that homemade look. And in this case, I wanted it to look a little more elevated. And I hadn't considered knitting because I've never free-handed a knitted garment before. So that was new. That was something to um, kind of take a risk, but I've been pushing my boundaries quite a bit lately in regards to my fiber arts work. So I was gaining some confidence and dove into it. And while it did require a lot of frogging and a lot of going back, it wasn't so much. Mm, I think it would have been similar if it had been a crochet piece. It was just in learning to construct the cardigan. So yeah, maybe some of it was due to it being knitted. Um, Here I'm showing off my color work because it looks so clean and so much better than the original version. I was very proud of myself. I was holding the camera in one hand, so that's why it's a little difficult for me to show it one-handed. But I think it turned out great. There's still a little fungeliness, especially what's going on in the back that I'll have to tidy up. But overall, I think it's pretty decent. I, yeah, I was super proud of myself at this time. And oh, something I was doing was I flipped the grid upside down. So the way I was working it, since I'm working the back panel from top down, um, silly me was looking at the chart, right side up, but I'm working from top to bottom. So I had to keep flipping things in my head. So that was silly, and so I fixed that. Here I am casting on the front panels, and the front panels will be very lacy. And I found this pretty stitch that kind of had this leafy look to it, which I wanted to kind of pull in the nature feel from Frieren. But you see there's a very stark contrast where the color transition was happening there. And so since in this case, when I started knitting the piece, I was able to double strand of yarn. So that helped ease into the transitional colors by adding the transitional color just one thread at a time for a few rows before fully making both strands the new color. So that worked out. I had to go back and do that a few times where the transition was still too stark, and even then the back panel had it does kind of have some striping effect, but it isn't anywhere near as bad as it could have been. So I was quite happy with that in the end. Now that I've kind of talked about a lot of the technicalities of working on this cardigan, I think I'd like to really fangirl for a moment and go over why I wanted to make this cardigan, why I love Frieren Beyond Journey's End, and just what kind of brought this all about. So this is going to be very self-indulgent, but this is kind of a visual diary of mainly for myself for recording this process. So I'm sorry if you have to indulge me. You're welcome to click off if that is not something you want to participate in. So I'll briefly explain what Frieren is. Frieren is a manga turned anime, a story about after a hero's journey, which is a very common and popular structure in anime storytelling in particular. But we're not even seen from the hero's perspective, but rather one of his companions, the elf. And what is very unique about this is the very sincere and serious take on actually how an elf would perceive the world and perceive time. It's often commented, and we know they live a long time and that they make jokes, or it's just noted in contrast to other characters. But in this anime, or I'm sure in the manga as well, which I have not read, um, that the audience, feel how she feels, at least to a degree. The anime makes things feel slowed down and for things to feel also far away. And so you start to understand why the encounters, even as something as major as a quest that saves, the world or kingdom that she embarked on, feels like a fleeting thing to her and something that's just going to be a note in her long history. But we see her come around and start to do some self reflection of how she sees her experiences and her memories and starts to view them as things that are precious and wants to understand the people that she encounters instead of the way she has interacted with them before. So she retraces her steps of the journey she took with her friends on the hero's journey and starts to do a kind of journey inside herself through that. And we meet other characters, and it's wonderful. There's also action, there's magic, there's a lot to love about this anime. And to explain to, I guess, my future self why this anime has such a hold on me, at least particularly at this point in time, is I need to go back to when I first got into anime and that wonder of finding this beautiful storytelling medium and the beautiful way both the animation, the writing, the characters came together to create these beautiful stories, often epic stories, in ways that I hadn't seen in Western um, films or animation. And, that's often what sucks us into anime is there's something very different and there's something that is explored in a serious manner um, that just really hits us. And no, let's see, not the first anime I watched, but really among the first five I watched was Snow White with the Red Hair and Kami-sama Kiss. So two fantasy anime that I remember when I watched them, I was like, wow, I need this. I need more of this. This blew me away, and both I connected to very deeply, and I rewatched them yearly. They're one of my favorites to this day. And Snow White, in particular, I held very near and dear to my heart. But I think Frieren has actually trumped it amazingly. Because I always held on to that as a particularly sentimental anime, since it really started me down this journey that I was like, oh, okay, yes, I'm going to explore more of this. So there was this wonder with anime, and as a artist, and someone who loves storytelling and books and movies, I found there to be a lot of wonder to it. And so I became a full otaku. I explored more shoujo anime, but also shonen, the many classics, and also a few quite a bit of niche anime, I guess at this point. I can consider myself an otaku. But over the last few years, I grew quite cynical and grew quite disappointed in the trajectory anime was taking. The storytelling was getting worse. Most animes were relying on tropes, structures just to make it good enough that you could watch, but nothing like what I got into it for. Not to say we haven't had some good anime, we definitely have, and those are the ones that have kept me around. But I, and also, I was getting very jaded and honestly hurt by the over sexualization and objectification in anime. I used to write it off that, oh, this is the way it is. Some of it could be funny. Oh, that's, for the pervy boys. But at this point, I don't allow myself to make those excuses. It is a conscious choice. It is a conscious choice to draw the girls the way you do. It is a conscious choice to objectify them, often underage, and I don't accept that anymore. I will, at least to myself, fully acknowledge that I am not comfortable with this. I don't like it, and I don't want to see it. I don't want that to be in my anime, and I will, you know. So I was struggling with that quite a bit. And so a lot of anime I wouldn't even be watching if it wasn't a joint venture with a friend. But I didn't even realize how jaded I was getting until I watched Frieren. And that first episode, I suddenly felt the sense that I could breathe. And I felt that awe and wonder I used to feel when watching animes, that this is something special. And it's not that it is the most groundbreaking anime ever, but it is sincere. The storytelling is sincere. It is well done. It is um, taking itself seriously in its projection. So the framing is to see things through the lens of Frieren. So it is framed so that we have a sort of disconnect sometimes with other characters. That sometimes it's hard to read them. Sometimes they feel like real people at times that you know, they're not just stereotyped anime characters. And the world is built to feel like time is passing slowly, that we um, are kind of, um, I don't know, it's really hard for me to bring my thoughts concisely now as I'm talking, but it made me realize in particular how much I missed fantasy, good fantasy. I haven't had good fantasy in so long, and I realized that when I watched it. And in elves in particular, like I love elves because of Lord of the Rings, but I actually haven't seen anything else I think that made me really love an elf character. And they're often in anime, but they're just kind of there as a part of the trope. And the idea that they live long lives is just, you know, goes along with it, but there's nothing really unique or, um, I can't really think of an elf character that I've really cared so much for. And so that was a beautiful thing. And the world isn't, you know, oh so fantastical, but it gave me so much hope, so much peace as well. There was like just this beautiful flow of positive emotions that I got from it. I've watched it 3 times at this point. I'm revving up to watch it a 4th time. And I'm looking forward to season 2 so much. I am just so excited. And again, it's not that it's the masterpiece of anime, but for me, it is so important. It came at such a time that I needed it, and it connected me back to anime that I loved. And I want to go back and watch them with this refreshed sense in myself that I'm no longer having this bad feeling towards anime. I have hope in it, and and Apothecary Diaries also came out, which for you know, good historical anime is hard to come by. And so that was one that was well done, great female perspective. Um, and I guess that's something I really wanted a lot too, was a good female perspective. The characters are not objectified, they aren't sexualized, and characters are just allowed to be themselves. Like I said, they feel like real people in many senses. Their tragic backstories are there, but they aren't used to quite the same extent as in other animes, where that just explains the entire person. They explain some of them, but there's just a lot of daily interactions we get to see, and like we just feel like we are part of this group that is needing to live together day to day, and I like that sense and that feel that we get from that. So yeah, there's an overarching um, oh, and I guess one more note that I wanted to touch on. I do intend to go more in depth about Frieren and the characters in a different video, but I wanted to keep it general for this one and just why I felt compelled to create something inspired by this anime. But one more note I wanted to make to myself was that the female characters are allowed to be serious and they don't have to be cute. They don't have to make the little anime girl noises. They aren't being portrayed like anime girls. And certainly they are beautiful. And I think I came across online that like Frieren was a momoi or something. It's like serious cuteness. And certainly there are characters like that, so she probably falls into that bracket. But that the characters like her and Fern are allowed to be serious. They aren't smiling that often. And as someone who has struggled with not being a cutesy girl, who has struggled with being serious, and that being a unattractive thing, I appreciated that so much. I cannot explain how much that meant to me to see that. I'm like tearing up right now. Um, so yeah, I think I'm going to take a break and I'll come back and record more in a sec. Okay, I'm back. I just needed a minute. So, yeah, that was my rant for Frieren. I feel satisfied. Let's get back to the cardigan. Here you see me undoing part of the section. I actually undo a whole lot. Reason being, you just saw that lace work that is directly down the back. It was making the back construction look very stiff compared to the beautiful flow I had in the front with the lace front panels. Um, and I think I mentioned before that I didn't want the back panel to be fully stockinette, but I didn't want it to be fully laced because then the text box just looks like it's inserted in, and that didn't look natural. I wanted this to look like a very purposeful piece. So what I did is I go back and I leave some of that section that you had just saw there, and then I'm going to make the lace work expand out. It's going to fan out and kind of flow out from that initial, almost like a stream of lace, and expand bigger and bigger as we get towards the bottom. And it was a perfect in between of the solid stockinette to incorporate the text area, but also incorporating the lace to give it that elegance. I really love that decision. It was a good call. And yeah, no regrets in that regard. Something to note, since I've been working with color changing ombre yarn quite a bit lately, is I wanted to know that when you're working with it and you wanted like transition very, like the whole piece, you want it to transition together, you need to really work out how you're going to um, make the colors line up. And so, like when you're working the back panel, but also then the front panels and they're not on the round yet, you need to section those off. So, kind of basically, what I would do is almost go halves on it and then halves on one of the halves for the two front panels, if that makes sense. And then you kind of want to do similar thing with the sleeves. You kind of want to half the portion, but you also have less, unless you have a very wide arm, um, less coverage that needs to be done there. So it's less than the amount you're allotting to the body. So there was a lot of just eyeballing in that regard. You could probably do it a lot better by weighing your yarn and proportioning it that way. But who's going to do that? Not me. Um, I've gotten fairly good at it at this point, but it's just something I'm constantly having these little balls of colors, and I don't know, it's interesting and it kind of breaks up the flow a little bit. But you see here that I am transitioning into the lighter colors. I didn't go use all the color from the skeins for this piece like I did with the darker colors like the teals. One, because it kind of gets into this like neon lime color, which looks beautiful all together with the rest of the colors, but uh, lime green or that kind of green does not look good on my skin tone. I'm quite pale with a cool undertone, but that kind of green reflecting on me makes me look sick. So I wanted as little as possible and as further away from my face as possible. That is why it's at the bottom. But I also wanted to get to the white portion, so it tied back into the title that is on the back panel. I realized that probably wasn't entirely necessary. The white still would have looked okay, but in my head, I thought I needed the white to make more sense. So I wanted the white to be at the cuffs and at the edge of the cardigan, just enough to pull that in. And I do think it looks quite pretty and adds to this softness of it. It probably wouldn't have been as soft without it. So I think it was a good call. I don't think I recorded much of me working on the sleeves, but here you see me working my way. I did incorporate a little bit of the lace going down the side of each sleeve and then fanning out just a little bit at the ends of them. That was actually my mom's idea. Great idea. It looks so much better. And then I actually did a cast off that kind of has these eyelets that I've never done before. And I really liked that. I think it also, again, added a little elevation, a little elegance to it. So, trying a lot of new things with this cardigan. It was definitely a journey, definitely a lot of problem solving. It took, I don't know, how long did it take? I think 2 months on and off with other projects in between. Oh, and I got this button that I got because it resembles the Zoltrak spell from Frieren. I don't know if I'm actually going to keep it. I might swap it out for one of the ones that looks a little less like the spell, but I think goes with the colors a little better. But that kind of concludes the process. So here you see the full finished piece at last. It was a work of love, and I love, 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 love it. It is so pretty. I really had a difficult time showing just how pretty it is. I wanted to have one of my girls model it for me, but there wasn't really time for that. So my mannequin is doing the job for us. You can see the detail and the lace here. And in beautiful timing with spring and what felt very Frieren-esque, kind of reminded me of Himmel's flowers, our peach blossoms were in bloom. So I got these beautiful shots amongst the blossoms. But that is that from me. I would love to know if you've also watched Frieren and what do you think of my attempt at a Frieren cardigan. If you made it this far, thank you so much, and I really appreciate it.